Hello again. Okay, we're back for part four. Let's talk about the other market vertical I want to discuss, which is self-publishing. A very legitimate path to publishing these days. Although people used to have a different mindset about it. Even a few years ago, when you self-published a book, it was sort of looked down upon as vanity publishing, and there were companies out there who would do that. They would literally print anybody's book without any quality control in the process, and it was certainly possible if you wanted to put up enough money to get your book published, in the sense of getting it printed. And typically people would end up with 1,000 books that nobody wanted to buy sitting in their garage. Well, that's not the self-publishing business these days. Self-publishing is a very legitimate way to become part of the publishing process. Now, of course, self-publishing, also called one-off publishing, digital publishing, anybody with a manuscript can become published. I guess that's the bad news. It's also the good news, but quality has to be in this formula somewhere along the way, and we'll get to that. It is literally possible. There are a couple of machines around, and I've seen one of them, where you can take like a small thumb drive, a zip drive, and bring it down to a publishing or a printing company, and you can plug the zip drive or thumb drive into the side of the machine, feed your credit card into another slot, and the gears whir and click for a while, and about 10 minutes later, kerthunk, a bound book comes out of the other end of the machine, and you are published. That's kind of not what we're talking about here, but at least there's a way to do that. Many accomplished authors are actually looking at self-publishing. Even Stephen King has self-published at least one book. Other well-known authors are doing it, and they're doing it primarily for economic reasons. And that's one of the benefits of self-publishing. But for those who are new to the publishing business, or new authors, it's a legitimate and good way to break into the business, provided, of course, that you have some quality in what it is that you're producing. In fact, there are many publishing houses now who, instead of waiting for manuscripts to come in the door, hoping that somewhere in this haystack of pages there might be a needle of, or at least a kernel of good quality work. The big publishing houses have folks on staff now who go out into the self-published world and look at what's being published to see if they can discern good quality manuscripts that are out there in the digisphere, essentially waiting for a good agent or a good publisher to come along and help the project to move forward. Some recently powerful titles, in fact, have come to market through that process. Again, it's the exception more than the rule, but here's where it's important for you. If you believe in something that you have put together, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing it, and let's see what happens in the marketplace. You know, if you self-publish a book and it sells a few hundred or 1,000 or a couple thousand copies, that indicates to a traditional publisher that people want to buy this. And so if it could get some support from the abilities of a traditional publisher to market a book, it might be beneficial. So again, nothing wrong with getting it out there. And if you do self-publish a work, it does not bar a traditional publisher from coming along and helping you copyright that book and get it published in a more traditional fashion. So you're not foreclosing. I guess what I'm saying is you're not foreclosing on your opportunities for a widely distributed and monstrously successful book if you self-publish your work first. In fact, it may help get it the attention it deserves. That's the bottom line. The secret to success in self-publishing is obviously distribution, marketing, and at least getting some sales. There's the classic story of this one young lady who recently, she was, as I understand it, laboring as a low-level attorney somewhere in the housing department down in Washington, D.C. In her spare time, she wrote this romance novel that she thought was pretty good, but she couldn't get an agent to give her the time of day, and obviously had a stack of rejection letters that was fairly thick. So she said, well, what the heck? And she went out and got it self-published, and she threw it up on Amazon and Kindle and Nook and whatever, and offered it for 99 cents. Well, there's a universe of people out there looking for content and looking for stories and looking for things to read, and just about anybody will take a risk on 99 cents. So again, long story short, she ended up selling 400,000 copies of her 99-cent book. And, even though it was only 99 cents at 400,000 copies, she certainly made some respectable money. Well, the sale of 400,000 copies brought her to the attention of a couple of good-sized publishers and agents, and she is now being approached, and was approached with 6- and 7-figure offers for her future works. So, it can happen. It's actually, you probably have better chances at this than winning the lottery, which we'd all love to do, but only a few of us do. But if you self-publish a book, you've got to support it. You've got to be able to market it. You've got to market yourself, and that sometimes takes a lot more work than some people are willing to do. And you have to take a look at the economics. For example, if you publish, as I have, a couple of traditionally marketed books, my 2 Vietnam books, for example, did very well. They won several prizes of various types, and went to second printings and are now in paperback, both books. But the maximum you're going to make in terms of royalties on a book in this sphere, even if it's reasonably successful, is about 15%. So a book that has a hardcover price typically of $27.95, it never sells for $27.95 because Amazon's always there to sell it for $19.95. But anyway, you're going to make about 15% of that cover price ultimately. So you've got to sell a few thousand books to make some money. On the other hand, if you self-publish a book and you charge $20 for it, you're going to keep 75% of it typically. And if it's electronically published, even better. And so you don't have to sell 10,000 books. You can sell 1,000 books and still make a nice little pile of money. So you got to look at the economics, and you have to be able to market yourself and market your book. My 2 Vietnam books were in every Barnes & Noble store in the country. If I had self-published those books, trust me, I might have been able to get it into the several Barnes & Noble stores here on Long Island where I live, but in California, in Texas, no. That's not something I certainly would have been able to do. So again, you have to look at the economics and your tolerance for pain, but my message to you is that self-publishing is a very viable way to go about this process. So let's talk a little bit about marketing in general and how you move that process forward. And that'll be part 5 in a minute.